Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So the topic for today is how to wholesale multifamily property. So first, let's define what that means. Now, you may think of a multifamily property as a 2 to 4 family, but the truth is that 1 to 4 family is considered residential 1 to 4 family, and by definition, and multifamily is usually 5 or more units. Now, there's a huge advantage in wholesaling multifamily properties, and there's a huge disadvantage. So the huge advantage is that on most 5 or more unit properties, multifamily properties, you can get a due diligence period during which you have the property locked up under contract and you have no obligation to buy the property. So you may have seen online when we're talking about residential properties in a lot of other states, there is an inspection contingency that goes into a regular contract, which is used by many wholesalers to find a buyer. And if they can't find a buyer, they get out during the inspection contingency. That does not happen on residential property in New York, but it does happen on commercial or multifamily property in New York. So not an inspection contingency, but a due diligence time period and contingency period, where you are allowed to check the leases. You're allowed to basically do all the due diligence to see if the property has any issues. Certainly if the property has rent controlled or rent stabilized tenants, there's a lot of due diligence involved. There are law firms who all they do is due diligence about rent controlled rent. I mean, I almost bought something, a portfolio of properties that had rent controlled, and I'm not really familiar with rent control and rent stabilization. And they gave me an answer that basically said, stay the hell away from it because it was so freaking complicated. It's so complicated. I mean, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but on the rent control and rent stabilization, if you screw up something on that, the tenant can sue you like 10 years later for something that you screwed up on. So that's why attorneys make a lot of money delving into the details. Now, that's a huge advantage. Huge advantage is you can theoretically find a buyer. Now, understand most buyers, at least sophisticated buyers, are going to want their own due diligence period. So you're going to need a long due diligence period so that you can find somebody quickly and they can still do their due diligence. But assuming you actually got all the paperwork together, maybe their due diligence period can be quick. Now, the disadvantages in relation to a single family house is that you don't really have a multiple listing service, an MLS, where you can blow this thing out so that everyone who wants to buy it can get it. Now, are there commercial things in LoopNet and places like that? They're not as good. They're just not. It's not as good. Can you list a multifamily on MLS? You can, but the people looking for it aren't going to look there. It's a different situation. You're going to need to work with a really good commercial realtor who maybe knows people. But again, you have this due diligence period. So if you come up empty, you could just say to the guy goodbye. Now, obviously, if you do that on a regular basis, your reputation is going to get out as somebody who doesn't close, and that's not a good reputation to have. Realtors are going to figure it out. Sellers are going to figure it out. And you can only do that so many times before people just say, I'm not even interested in your offer because I think you're just going to shop me around. So, I mean, and believe it or not, that happens on residential properties too. I have guys who call me all the time looking for things, and I know that I give it to them, they're just going to tack on 10 grand and send it out to their list. I'm not interested in that. I hate that. I hate that because it dilutes the quality of my deals, right? If a buyer sees it from 3 different places, he starts thinking, I'm one of the 3 morons who doesn't really have this under contract. So I always want to be direct to seller, and I want to show a property that I'm in contract on. I do not want to be seen as a guy who is bullshitting. And if you are a middleman like that, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's not for me. I don't want my deals put out there so that a buyer sees it multiple times. Now, when it comes to multifamily, it's a very interesting situation as how it's valued. It's a completely different way to value a property, right? On residential 1 to 4 families, my light's not going out. The way it's viewed by the lender is that the primary source of repayment is the borrower, so whoever's buying the property, the owner, and therefore the way to value the property is via comparable sales. So what can you sell it for? So if I'm buying a 1 family or 2 family, we look at other single family, 2 families in the area, what do they sell it for? That's the value. But when a multifamily or any commercial property, the primary source of repayment is the building, and therefore it doesn't get valued based on what comparable sales are. It gets valued based on a multiple of the net operating income, the NOI. So the amount of money that's coming in, the gross rents minus the expenses, given a certain percentage of cap rate, right? And whatever typical of that area is. So if it's a crappier area, it's going to have a higher cap rate. And if it's a better area, it's going to have a lower cap rate, right? The cap rates right now in New York are ridiculous, right? If you get a 5 cap, it's like an amazing deal, which is absurd. Now, what does a 5 cap mean? A 5 cap means how the relation of the price that you're paying for it to the net operating income. So a 5 cap means you're getting a 5% return. So that means if you're buying something for $1 million, it has, on a 5 cap, it'll have $50,000 of net operating income. Now, it doesn't take into account a financing, right? It doesn't matter what you're borrowing when it comes to cap rate, right? And you could have a higher cash on cash return if you're not putting up $1 million, you're only putting up $300,000 and you're getting $20,000. It's a better return than you're putting up $1 million and you're getting the $50,000, right? Because you're gonna have to pay the debt service, you're gonna have to pay those mortgage payments. So that's how things are valued as a cap rate. So to be simple, it's a simple percentage. So if somebody tells you my net operating income is $100,000, you can just divide that by whatever you think the cap rate is. You can divide it by 0.05, and you'll get $2 million. Sorry. So the situation is that when you're looking at a commercial property, sometimes a seller will go, well, the property next door to me is a warehouse and it's sold for $1 billion. It doesn't matter, right? The only thing that matters, and I tell you guys, just tell me what the rents are and what the expenses are. And then I can figure out if something's worth it. Now, I don't buy things like on very low cap rates. It doesn't make sense to me unless I can really add value to it and increase the net operating income so that at a similar cap rate, it's worth much more and I can maybe refinance the property out. But as regards to wholesaling, it's an interesting situation because the way you're looking at the property may be very different than the way a potential buyer is looking at the property as to its use and as to what the real rents could be. So smart people, wealthy people make a lot of money by buying a property at a certain cap rate and maybe either changing the use or increasing the rents to the point where at the same cap rate or even a better cap rate, they can get a lot more money for it. So it's a completely different way to do business. If you're only doing single family, 1 to 4 families, and you're looking at commercial property, it's very different. Is it possible to wholesale it? Yes. And you have this huge advantage of this due diligence period where you can go out and find buyers. Listen, I heard stories of guys making, $7, $8, $10 million on commercial properties in Brooklyn. It's certainly possible if you get the deal at the right price. Because again, the guy selling it may be looking at it as, well, this is a 5 cap, it's a great deal. And the other guy is saying, I can convert this to shared office space, to multi-tenant residential, something that's not being used now. Or I know I can get the zoning changed, and if it be used differently, I can change it to residential from commercial. So these are things that it happens a lot. Arvin, you have a question? Okay, if you have a question, ask the question. But that's how it works with commercial property. It's looked at very differently than residential property. Very, very different. So it's possible. It's got a huge advantage of this due diligence period, which is accepted, is accepted in the industry, and but it's got this disadvantage that you don't have you can't reach as many potential buyers as you can with a residential property with multiple listing service, right? Again, you can reach some people on LoopNet, but guys that are serious buyers are not checking LoopNet every day. They just aren't. Most people that aren't serious are looking at checking LoopNet every day. So it's a different situation. With MLS, anybody looking to buy a 1 to 4 family will find it on MLS because MLS will pump it out to every other site like Zillow and Trulia and all that stuff. So that's how it works with wholesaling multifamily properties. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in the different ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in my course, the teaching how to do this, it's at howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you are interested in coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Whatever platform you're watching on, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It's been helping me out. A lot more people have seen my videos. Oh, question. Did you ever have any experience with a scammer? I've had a lot of experience with scammers, Arvin. I don't know what specific scammer you're talking about. So keep the comments coming. Any comments, all comments get responded to. If they're simple, I'll just reply. If it's a topic that I've covered in detail, I'll send you a link to a video. If it's something I haven't covered in a while, something I've never covered, I'll do a video on it. So I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very, very much.